Hello everyone, welcome to part 2 of the BC8 Mammoth Cross RC build. Things have moved on quite significantly since the last video. I've been progressing quite well, building this in the evenings due to the lockdown at the moment, and I thought it was time I did a bit of a video to catch up because I don't want to go too far. So here's the beastly chassis, which is together with the axles in it, but we'll come on to that very shortly. Bag of the hubs here, front and rear hubs. I'm not going to show you all of them, but I'll just show you, you know, as an example of each one. So this is one of the rears. Obviously, you've got the bearings that go in there, and then the drive shaft that goes through here. And yeah, they're pretty big and pretty substantial. Well, that's the front. These are not difficult to build, but just fiddly, because you've got to get these little collars in for the bolts to go through, and to make sure that, you know, the steering arms can move. And also you've got these lines here, which the wires go in for. I believe those wires are for, they go like along the length of the chassis here. They go in these slots here. They're to do with the suspension and tension and things like that. Don't know for certain, but because I haven't got to that bit yet. But yeah, there was a lot of these, and it's a bit of repetition, but yeah, they're well made. They went together okay. One issue is, or I found, this part here that the drive shaft goes through, the instructions say it's got an arrow on it to which way up it goes. Well, it doesn't. The plastic ones do, and the ones in the manual are numbered for the plastic ones, so they're different to the bags for the metal kit. Don't know if that's just mine, but they don't match. So a little bit of a faff. I mean, it's not a big issue, but I had to get the plastic ones out to find out which way this went, because it wasn't necessarily obvious in the manual. But, you know, a small thing, okay, so let's move on to the chassis. So one thing that I was confused about, and Andrew, I feel quite sorry for him really, because of the lockdown, he and I haven't been able to see each other. So he's seen as much as you've seen. Now, we've waited for this rig for a long time, and he's not been able to see it, but you know, you can't wait indefinitely to build it. Anyway, he was confused, as was I, as to how the axles go in. So you've seen them out in the last video. If you haven't seen that, please do check it out. So yes, they bolt in to the bottom of the chassis here. Here. And there, and yeah, it's such a different setup. You know, we're used to kind of the SCX10s and, you know, the MCs, where you have actual a solid axle goes across this way, but these have got like a central gearbox, if you like. But yeah, very different setup, and I'm really impressed because this must have taken a long time to engineer. You know, you put it together. Thinking this in the manual, you put it together and you follow in step-by-step instructions, but to make those instructions and to get everything working right, it just, you know, boggles the mind really. So the motor's in, seriously long drive shafts. There's bits in this that say use thread lock, like for the grub screws and things like that, and, you know, securing the motor. I don't use thread lock, even the blue stuff, because I've had issues, especially with grub screws before, where it's just stripped them trying to get them out, and I've had to then drill them out. So as part of my pre-run checks on all of my rigs, I always check essential bolts, just give them a quick nip up while I'm charging the lipos. And I found that to be, for me, I'm much happier doing that than I am with the potential of something getting stripped, because I find Allen bolts, they strip, as soon as they start to strip the hex, you've had it. It's pretty much game over. And I've had some real issues with that in the past. So I tend to, you know, do them up tight and then nip them up every now and again. Seems to work for me. Both the servos are in, which is great. They went in nice and easily. One thing, the issue I have had slightly is that these screws, it said use thread lock. Again, I didn't. But getting these screws into the thread, into the side of the gearbox, was an absolute mission. It really tight. Now, I double and triple checked it's the right screws. That was a bit of an issue. It's the first issue I've had so far. And I was really on edge waiting for the hex to start to round off. I put some grease in there as well to make it easier, but it didn't really make much of a difference. So that's how she's looking. I weighed all this last night, as you see it here, and it weighs 2.7 kilograms so far. It's a beast of a thing. It really is really quite substantial. So the next bit really is kind of, there's lots of kind of ancillary bits that go on, loads of little bits and pieces, brackets and things, and then the hum arms go on. So we're getting there, and then I think also the next part is the gearbox servo needs to go on. The gearbox servo sits in here. Now, before I put the servos in, I needed to test out the electrics, because I've never before had it where I've run 2 servos simultaneously. So I like to test things before they go in, because there's nothing worse than going to the hassle and trouble of putting something together, putting it in, and then finding it doesn't work. So I've learnt a very valuable lesson more than once, finding out the hard way. So what I've done to power the servos, they recommend you get a Beck. So what I've got is it's upside down, the Castle Beck 2.0. It's fairly hefty. It goes up to, output ranges from 4.75 volts to 12 volts. And it's up to a 14S input, 15 amp peak. So it's more than I need, but it's waterproof, which is a key thing for me. I want to avoid trying to swap electronics out in this truck if I can. So everything's being waterproofed. So these servos, the e-tronic servos I've got, only require 6 volts. They can run up to 7.4, but all that seems to do when I tested it was just make the servos faster. Now, I'm interested in, I tend to put rates on my steering to make it slower so that it looks scale. So the 6 volts is fine. It just means that there's a good stable power source. So how do you fit it? Well, I'm sure it's like trying to teach people to suck eggs. The Beck is powered off of the main LiPo. So we'll be running a 3S LiPo. Now, that then goes into this board. Now this board that you get supplied by Cross, that's been conformal coated. It's really, really clever if we can get it to zoom in. So you've got a power source in here, right, for the Beck. Actually, I tell a lie, sorry, the one on the right-hand side, this bit here, that was pre-installed. So the one I've wired into the LiPo lead, that was pre-installed to this circuit board. It came like that. So that's the power into the board. The power out of the board, I had to solder this on myself. Now the soldering is awful. I hate soldering. I am awful at it, especially on small little things like this. I cannot stand doing it, but yeah, not good. But anyway, I've tested it. It works. The connection's fine. Just ignore how awful it is. So off of that board, the Beck is then powered. Okay. So then what happens is you put power back into the board from the Beck via the servo lead. That goes, come on, focus camera, that goes in here like that. And then what you've got is on the top, you can power the fan, which is, according to Simon, he said, is to cool the motor, because if you're towing a heavy load, the motor gets really hot. These are the 2 servo outputs, so you can run both servos. So they steer at the same time, they turn at the same time. I've tested that and it works. And channel 1, this goes to your receiver. So you have the channel out, channel into your receiver, and that goes into here like this. So this little tiny board pretty much, sends power around and out to different services. That also then, this channel 1, if you're using the light kit, it doesn't go straight to the receiver. The channel 1 goes out to the light kit, and you get another output from the light kit that goes into channel 1 on your receiver. I'll go into the light kit at a later stage. But this is the electric bit so far. Now, the reason why I've put this in here, and I'm a bit nervous about it because I don't want to show off my awful soldering, but I didn't know when I bought this rig, well, sorry, when I was looking at it, I didn't know initially that it had 2 steering servos. And I was thinking in my mind, how on earth do you power the 2 servos? I started looking up, and I didn't realise, of course, that a circuit board supplied. Now, I downloaded the manual from CrossRC US. They've got the manual on there, and that's when I realised. So it's quite useful, really, hopefully for people wanting to build this kit and wanting to look at it, wondering how on earth things go together. So just to summarise, really, you've got your light. This, you don't have to do it like this, but it's the way I've chosen. So you've got the main LiPo that goes to ESC. That is already soldered in the board. You get 2 circuit boards, one 3S, one 2S. So there's another one exactly like this, but it's designed for 2S, whereas this is a 3S one. So it goes power from the LiPo into the board. You've got a power out then to the BEC here. You then can plug the BEC straight into the board here via these pins. Focus camera. You've then got an output for the fan. You've got an output for the 2 servos, and you've then got an output that either goes to your RX direct if you don't want to run the lighting board, or it will then power the lighting board. It's quite clever. It's been conformal coated because I know this, I believe this goes in the engine bay, but you know, the chances of water getting in there if you run in the rain like we regularly do, I don't want it getting too wet. I mean, there's loads of wires already. I hate wires. I hate them with a passion. They just, I'm not the tidiest with securing wires, to be fair. And it's going to get a lot worse when you look at the lighting kit. It's going to be pretty serious. So to end this video, let's have a quick look at what's coming next and discuss when I will probably do another video. So this is the point we're at here. The gearbox is in. This is the next point here that go. I wanted to keep this manual clean, but stuff gets dropped on it. Shows it's used, right? So these braces here and these little brackets here that are going on. So that will be the next job. Then the gearbox servo. So I've got the setup on my radio for the MC. Now the gearbox is the same. The shaft looks pretty much the same. So I will copy the settings. Hopefully that'll work, no problem. I've done it before. It's a little bit tricky sometimes, but hopefully it shouldn't be an issue. Then it looks like the hubs go on. So it's getting quite serious. It's progressing quickly, a lot quicker than I expected. I've been trying to delay this build a little bit, but I was thinking, oh, I'm getting too excited. Now things are coming together and we got a chassis. I can't help it really. So I'm gonna, crack on. Why not? Yeah, so they all go on. These little rods here, this is what goes into, I believe, these areas here. And they've got holes in. The rods have got holes in, well, the shafts have got holes in. So they go through. I believe that's something to do with the tension of the suspension, as I understand it. So that's going to be a thing. And then you're getting on to setting up how soft, so you can have it standard or soft, the tension of the suspension. And then you're getting into putting the dampers on at the top. And then you're talking about the steering. So yeah, it's coming together. So it's not that far off of being a running rig that I can run it just a chassis, that I can run in the house or in the garden. So that will be, I don't know when I'm going to do the next video. Probably when I've got all the hubs on and then the rods and maybe the steering. So, it's need to have some juicy bits to have a video about. So it's progressing thanks to the virus, and that's the only positive thing about it, I think. I've had it just over a week and a couple of days, and I've just been doing a couple of hours in the evening, so nothing major, and it's going together really nicely. A couple of frustrating little bits, but on the whole, pretty damn impressive. So that's great. I think where I will struggle is the body. I hate fiddly little bits, gluing. I've been looking through it, looking ahead, and there's so much stuff and deciding which bits to paint when, because that's a mistake I made with the MC6. I painted too much and then tried to glue bits, and it just was a bit of a mess. So I'm going to need to be really careful with that. So that for me is going to be the bit that takes the time. I hate painting. Andrew has refused to paint, which I can understand. And to be fair, I want to do it myself and get it right. So that's where the project's going to take a real kind of slow in progress, if you like. This bit is the thing that I probably enjoy the most and feel most comfortable doing. So anyway, I hope everyone is well. Thank you always for your channel, for the channel support and watching our videos and comments. I hope this video has been useful if you're thinking of buying one, you know, to what you can expect, because that's, for me, that was the biggest thing. There weren't many videos out there that showed how the axles were, and not that I could find anyway. So hopefully this will be useful to you. It might encourage you to buy one as well, because it's awesome. But stay safe, everyone. Look after yourselves. Be nice to each other. And please like and subscribe, and we'll catch up soon. Bye for now.